Bienvenidos. Welcome. Welcome. Are we feeling jazzed? I hope so. I hope so. I want to thank you very much, Carolyn, for that, Dr. Heinrich, for that great introduction, for being a great hostess to us. And you're new to Texas. She's already making a splash on the local Texas scene and at the University of Texas. And so please join me, everybody, in giving her a hearty Texas welcome. Fortunately for us here in the state of Texas, the fight against high-stakes testing, meaning the fight against the uses and the abuses of standardized tests, has been a protracted struggle, beginning with a federal trial in Judge Prado's Western District U.S. Court in San Antonio, Texas in 1999 to 2000. Dr. McNeil and myself were expert witnesses in that trial. I'm going to give you a little bit of history here, not only to honor the important work and progress that many of us have already been involved in at the state level, but also to, as we understand and learn about this history, that we build thoughtfully and deliberately about all of that work that has been done, moving into, of course, the legislative session. In 1999, Dr. McNeil, myself, and others were called to be expert witnesses in a trial that was the GI Forum versus the Texas State Education Agency and the State Board of Education. It was litigated by Al Kaufman, MALDEF attorney, and they represented 9 African American and Latino plaintiffs who had been denied diplomas because they had failed to pass some portion of what was then the TOS test. Back then we had reading, writing, and math segments, and these students were good students, but they hadn't passed some portion, and so they were being denied a diploma. This, of course, adversely impacted them, and that was really the heart of the case, to demonstrate that there was a disproportionate negative impact and that it correlated to race and to class. And there were other kinds of details that were very important, including special education students and language learners, English language learners, that were being adversely impacted at that point. Now, MALDEF, just to make a long story short, actually won the adverse impact argument, but lost the case, and it was decided in 2000. Judge Edward Prado ruled that while he was distressed that the Latino and African American plaintiffs had indeed been harmed by the state's testing system. Mind you, 87% of all of those who were failing the TOS test at that time were either African American or Latino. And what he had deemed was that, yes, while this is distressing and unfortunate, the harm did not reach a constitutional level, and that was really the concluding statement of his ruling. And he stated that because he maintained that the state followed due process in the design and implementation of the test, and that the students had multiple opportunities to take the test. Following the trial, at exactly 11 years, 7 months, and 29 days ago, the University of Texas Mexican American Studies program held a statewide forum here in this very space. So it feels like deja vu for me right now, all over again. And the forum was called Latino Educational Equity, High Stakes Testing, and Percent Plans in Higher Education. Was there anyone here back then, 11 plus years ago, in the audience today? If you can raise your hands. Okay, well, it was a different mix back then, but thank you for coming back. We're still fighting the same struggle. The event took place during the opening days of the legislative session, January 26th, 2001, and it brought about 800 people into this auditorium. What it also brought together were a number of scholars that had been part of the trial and others that were doing research in the schools at that time. We formed a volume called Leaving Children Behind, Why Texas State Accountability Fails Latino Youth. And several of us that had witnessed in the federal trial were sitting right here on the dais at that point. What was voiced in the open mic session afterwards were a lot of concerns about the harmful impact of the testing system, a lot of testing abuse, the teaching to the test, the testing to the test, the marginalizing of curriculum and children, and both. After this public exchange, the very next day, in January 27th, 2001, a rally was organized by Benny Martinez and others of the League of United Latin American Citizens. They protested the harmful effects of this system, and that, together with this conference, the volume, we were able to, I think, provide the first broad-based expressions of disenchantment in the state of Texas regarding high-stakes testing. Having lost the trial in 2001, MALDEF, LULAC, the Intercultural Development Research Association, IDRA, and myself pursued a legislative remedy in the form of multiple criteria bills that called for a research-based holistic approach that would serve as the basis on which to make high-stakes decision. And by that, we mean promotion or non-promotion in grades 3, 5, and 8. We mean graduation or non-graduation on the basis of a single indicator at the exit level, and at that point, we didn't have, of course, the end-of-course exams. Representative Dora Olivo, session after session, alongside a growing statewide community of increasingly disenchanted parents, civil rights groups, teachers. By the 2009 session, we actually can now claim a victory in policy, having lawfully eliminated not testing, but high-stakes testing for all 300,000 third graders in the state of Texas. According to Section 28.021, children will now holistically be based on factors such as grades, attendance, classroom performance, teacher assessment, parent input, and test performance. That's putting research to work. That is putting our research to work, and our community's involvement and the constituency that developed around this policy that Representative Dora Olivo led to work. In light of this ignominious history on testing that has discriminated against our communities of color, English language learners, special education children, and the poor, I, for one, do not appreciate that these tests are ever justified publicly by anyone in our name as a civil rights achievement. We have made progress, and we're going in the right direction in our state. What we collectively need to do is raise serious questions about the way that policy making is done, and not just by voting with our feet, but by holding accountable the special interests that use these tests to demean and demonize public education, thereby paving the road to charters, vouchers, privatization, and marketization of all things education. This is no mystery. Back then it was heresy to suggest such things. 1 minute. So for now, what we want to do and what we can do this next session, si se puede, what we can do is relegate all high-stakes testing to the dustbin of history. Si se puede. Yes, we can. What I want to just say in closing is that I'm not really sure what all my colleagues are going to say tonight, but you'll hear language about pathways, curriculum, standards, charters, and I think that what we want to really hold to is our collective goal of an enriching, imaginative, creative, and indeed transformational educational opportunity to which all ensuing generations of Texas youth are entitled. Thank you very much.